Sune Svanekier, thank you so much for talking to me today. It's so lovely to see your face. We went to drama school together, so we did have one reunion about 10 years ago maybe, but
I think so,
we haven't seen each other properly for a very long time.
No.
And your life is very different now. Can you just give us a bit of background into where you've come from, where you are now, what you've been doing, and yes, what is your profession now?
Yes, well, I'll try to sum up 25 years as fast as I can. Well, I am still a working actor, but I have also branched out because earning a living as an actor in Denmark is quite difficult unless you are a big star, basically.
So you just brushed over that, Sune, but you live in Denmark.
Yes, I do. I live in a little town called Svanekier, which is up the coast from Copenhagen, very close to Elsinore. I'll get back to that later.
Okay.
Yes, so I'm acting, but mostly in children's theater and some live interpretation events in Kronborg Castle in Elsinore, actually, Hamlet's castle. I've been doing Hamlet live this past year for the museum guests, playing Polonius. Yes, I have reached that playing age now, and doing a little bit on telly and stuff, bits and bobs, commercials and stuff. But I have also been writing. As you may remember, I wrote a musical during my days at Guildhall called Atlantis, which became a huge success back then. Probably the biggest success I have had, weirdly enough. But I continue writing musicals with some new writing partners, and for the last 10 or 11 years have had quite a lot of success with those in various theaters in Copenhagen. Not as big as Atlantis, but still, we've been doing a couple of Ken Follett adaptations.
So really, you really do have quite a kind of an eclectic career then, in the sense that you're basically going to do anything to earn some money, aren't you?
Yes, basically. I also teach. I have, before I even started at Guildhall, I was a teacher in a little, what we call a youth school, which is basically night school for young people, here in this town where I live now, doing musical training.
This is Poppy.
Hello, Poppy. And I'm still teaching at that place. I've went back, not every year, but occasionally doing musical theatre with young people, which is great fun.
How lovely.
Yeah, and it has also functioned as a sort of, what do you call it, a learning place for me to write and direct proper big scale musicals.
Right, okay. And so why did you come to Guildhall in London? You lived in Denmark, you were quite happy teaching. What brought you on that path?
Well, I had wanted to become an actor since high school and had applied for the Danish. There are 3 sort of established drama schools in Denmark. There were 3 at that time. There are more now. And I sort of made it to the to the final recalls, but didn't get in, and sort of abandoned the whole idea. And then my cousin Maria was training at Guildhall as a stage manager.
Ah.
She said to me, "Why don't you apply over here?" I thought, well, that sounds like a laugh. I'll have to perform Shakespeare in English for the audition. Whoa, that's great. So I did that with somehow with my expectations, very low. I just did it for a laugh, and it was over an extended weekend. And when I got back home from London, I was accepted at Guildhall, so my life was in turnaround. I had a girlfriend, I had a place to live in Copenhagen, which I was really fond of, and now I had to move to England. And I was sort of quite old. I was in my mid-20s compared to the rest of the gang. So
Yeah, you were kind of the daddy. You were the daddy, really. I mean,
yeah,
we say this, but actually you were only 25.
yes.
Would you say that you have been a successful actor, or have you been successful within the industry that you have chosen?
Well, it depends on how you define success, because well, if I say no, why have I continued doing so? Well, I've been successful in the respect that I've made a living. I've also done a lot of voice work, dubbing foreign language cartoons and stuff. So I've sort of had a steady flow of income over the years, and coupled with the last 10 years of the writing that I do and the teaching. I would say that yes, I have had several successful careers on their own in terms of money. They wouldn't have been termed as such, but coupled together, yes. I haven't sort of received major accolades.
To me, and I think to a lot of people in the arts industry, if you are working, you are successful, and that doesn't mean that you are recognized in the street.
Yeah, exactly. There was one time actually that I was recognized, which is a very bizarre story. I'll tell it to you anyway. But there's this very famous stand-up comedian in Denmark who's called Anders Matthesen. He's super famous, and it's been for 15 years now, I think. And back in 2004, he was going to do a television show where he was playing all the parts. And I was asked to participate because he needed someone to play against. So I had to wear his costumes, and I would sort of be standing with my neck to the camera, and he would be in the camera obviously all the time. For a whole month we did this. And it was such a bizarre assignment, but really funny. And he was a good bloke, and we hit it off. But it's just so strange that the camera would always be there and never there. Apart from 2 tiny scenes, but I was also in the bonus material on the DVD where I talked about this. And because of that, and because he had such a huge following, I was recognized for many years after this. I was the most famous neck in Denmark for 10 years.
I love it.
And I spent the next 20 plus years in Copenhagen. And that's where I met my wife, Suzanne, who is also in the arts industry. She's a conductor and a trumpet player. And we bought an apartment in Copenhagen and had our first child there. And then we left and bought a house, a lovely house, very close to the coast here in Svanekier. And that is 3 years ago, 3 plus years.
Okay.
Yeah.
So tell me, Sune, how has COVID-19 affected you?
Dun, dun, dun. Well, it was it did affect me quite a lot, actually. I was in the midst of doing a production. We had been rehearsing for 6 months, and we were going to produce it in Easter. And when COVID came, of course, it was closed down immediately, which I still aches. I've been doing 13 shows over the last 25, 26 years there, and never have we had to cancel. It was just felt so wrong. And there are 100 young people involved in this, and of course they were really shocked and sad. But I was as well. It was so bizarre, suddenly, having it all yanked away. The only good thing was that the administration did pay us the full amount that they owed us, the whole fee. So in that sense, I got off to a good start in COVID. Then came the lockdown, and I was here for 6 weeks with my wife and kids, and that was it was great. And we had lots of fun. We went on trips, and we were fortunate to have the garden, which was really, to think of all those people living, if we had stayed in Copenhagen, it would have been madness.
Yeah.
More so than it was.
So both you and your wife were then, that was everything just stopped?
Yes. Yes. Suzanne had some, she's also arranging music, and she had some assignments that she could do. So oftentimes she would sit in her office down in the basement and do that while I hung out with the kids.
Seems fair.
Yes. But so at times it was really tough, I must say. But it was also great. They are two lovely little rascals, full of pep.
Good word.
Yes. I had a show that had just started when lockdown came. It was a Ken Follett adaptation, a book called A Column of Fire, which played in a theater in Copenhagen, and they played for 6 days, and then it was all over. And I had 2 shows that were going to run in the summer, amateur productions, but shows that I had written, so we would get some royalties off of those, and they were cancelled very shortly afterwards. And I was also going to appear in what we in Denmark call a summer review. Review being a term of a show that is compiled of sketches and songs, sometimes topical. And we did that last year for the first time in Elsinore, which hadn't had a review for many, many years. So we sort of revived the tradition. And we had to cancel that. We sort of kept hoping because of the Danish authorities' way of handling the situation, it looked sort of not too bad, actually, in the beginning. But we realized that even if we open, even if we had been able to open, people wouldn't have come because everybody was still so scared of this thing. So we've postponed that to next year. So lots of stuff collapsed. Luckily, my contract with Kronborg Castle in Elsinore was not cancelled. They, being a museum and not a theatre, even though they employ actors, they sort of hoped that they would be able to open eventually, and they said they were sure that they would be able to attract more people if they had actors doing Hamlet all day than if they didn't. And lo and behold, I think they were going. Originally, they were going to open on June 1st, and they opened June 8th. I think we started that day as well, or a couple of days later.
Okay.
Yeah. So we had the month of May where we had to do our rehearsals. We started doing rehearsals on Zoom, and then we went into parks. We couldn't be at the castle. We weren't allowed. I don't think we were even allowed to rehearse in the parks. because the castle is directly beneath the government sort of in structure. So everybody working there is working for the state, and all state employees had to be at home still. They were still locked down, even though the rest of the country had opened. But so we sort of rehearsed in secret in parks for a couple of weeks, just to prepare if they suddenly opened, and we could sort of deliver, which was trying to accommodate our employers. Our premiere was a little bit haphazard. We weren't quite ready.
You were getting paid while you were rehearsing?
Yes, we were employed for 4 months, 1 month of rehearsals, 3 months at the castle, and we got the full pay for that as well. Okay. So for a while we were actually the only actors in Denmark performing, because theater culture had been shut down. Not culture, but theater had been shut down until I think September.
What support was there out there for the arts industry?
Yes, well, in the beginning, we had a culture minister for cultural affairs who sort of seemed as if she was not really doing her job. She was sort of more focused on following orders, I think. So she sort of said something like, in a time like this, we don't need culture, or culture is not important. We have to, put it aside. Mm-hmm. And it really sent people off the rails, on the barricades, but that meant that there was literally no talk of helping the arts for a long time. It was businesses. It was practically every other department.
And how did the arts community deal with that?
Well, there was a huge outcry and a lot of writings on the social media and in newspapers, but it was difficult to sort of really get the points through or be taken seriously, because the vast majority of the population, I think, agreed. I mean, nobody was interested in going to the theater, and so they were sort of thinking short term, I guess, here and now. But as eventually our prime minister came out and said, well, culture is what is defining us, it's bringing us together, so obviously we have to support the arts, because eventually we're going to want to meet each other again in an auditorium or a theater or a cinema. And so in August, I think, cinemas were allowed to open, but with social distancing, and also some types of theater.
Have you had effectively a sort of a second wave now?
Yes, I think that's fair to say. But the numbers were really good in May and June, because of the very, very aggressive lockdown. But you couldn't do festivals, but you could do a wedding.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Strange. I mean, I do find it fascinating, how different countries have dealt with it. It's so confusing. It's so confusing.
Yeah. It's been confusing for everybody here as well. How many can we actually be here now? Or when we were rehearsing in the park, we had to make sure that we were not more than 10 people huddled together. But we were outside, so what's the big deal? But that was when it was at the most severe time.
So what is the current situation for the arts industry and for theatres and music, hospitality as well?
Hospitality, you mean hotels and stuff?
Hotels, bars, restaurants, yeah.
Yeah. Right now, we're back to, from as of today, Monday, the 26th of October, we cannot be more than 10 people together. We have to wear masks. We've had to wear masks for the last 2 months in public transportation, but now we have to wear them in supermarkets and every public place. We've had to sanitize our hands and keep 1 meter apart. And in cinemas and theaters, they don't sell all the seats so that there are spaces between people.
So are the cinemas and theaters open now?
Yes, they opened in September, if not August, and people have come. People want to go to the theater.
Okay.
And I've been doing this children's show, a Norwegian play based on a book which is really popular in Denmark. I've done that every November and December for the last 12 years. And this year we haven't received our contract yet, but 2 weeks ago we were told that yes, we are going to open. We will have start rehearsals on the November 9th. But this past Friday, new restrictions came, and they've been waiting for those. But as far as I can see, it doesn't stop them from producing the show.
A lot of the reasons that theatres are closing here, small theatres are closing, and bigger theatres, is because it's not financially viable to have half an audience. So how are those theatres coping with that?
Well, some aren't. There are theatres that are not open, but surprisingly, there are quite a lot. I don't know if they get any sort of bailout packages, programs.
Have you had support from the government?
Yes, I have. I received for the 4 shows that I mentioned, I got 5,000, the equivalent of £5,000.
Is that enough?
No. Well, it was nice to have, but if they had been running, who knows how successful they would have been. But I probably would have earned something on the likes of £25,000.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we've taken a hit, and I'm not the one who's worst off. I mean, some people have lost everything and are not, for some various reasons, entitled to any bailout money.
And Denmark doesn't have anything like our Arts Council. So it's fascinating to hear. I mean, when I spoke to Giles in Rome, he said, there's nothing like that in Italy, so there's no saving of these theatres by some wonderful, fairy godmother organisation. So has there been any specific sort of money from the government that has been just for the arts industry?
Yes, there was some sort of program in August that you could apply for. You could, if you had a new project, because everything else had been cancelled. Have you got anything new that you want to do in these times? And it wasn't really successful because they promised that everybody who applied would get money. So people wrote in, said, "Oh, right, we need can we have £1,000 for this?" And a lot of people had really put some effort into we could do this and make budgets and stuff. And of course, they had so many applications that they couldn't give people what they wanted. So instead of £1,000, you can have £500. Thank you, but now I can't realize the project.
That's fairly ignorant, isn't it, from the government to have promised something without actually having the knowledge of the enormity of what they were promising?
Even though it's a social democratic government, I must say they're not really sort of friends of the the arts. Yeah.
Do you think, Sune, do you feel like you're getting back to normal?
Well, yes and no. Suzanne she's had this 3.5 year contract with a military orchestra in Jutland, which is in the southern part of Denmark. So during lockdown, she got her salary, even though she had to stay at home. But now she's back to being freelance. For me, the work situation is a bit complicated because people are not enthusiastic about launching new projects. And we have been trying to pitch some stuff for various producers. One of them is he's actually going to produce Atlantis next year in a revival,
That's
which
fantastic.
is really it's great news. Also because he paid us an advance in September, which actually saved my 2020 economy and also that of my colleagues. But he is interested in doing a brand new piece that we have proposed, and that's for 2022. So that's some time off, but that also means that it's actually doable, because hopefully things will be back to normal by then. But that's the only sort of writing project that's in the pipeline, and as I say, it has it's a long time coming, and I don't know if we can get an advance like that again.
Are you worried?
I am a bit. In Denmark, we have a system that is unemployment insurance. So ever since I got out of Guildhall, besides my union, I have been paying to this fund every month, which means that when I'm not working, I can get something like £2,300 every month. If I have to continue on this, and if Suzanne has to, she's also applying for this now until she hopefully gets a new job. If that keeps on for long, we can't pay the mortgage. So this lovely house might not be ours forever.
Wow. So that is an actual possibility, do you think?
That is an actual possibility, and that is worrisome, definitely.
Yeah. Sune, have you ever, throughout this, have you ever had that awful thought? Maybe you might need to change careers?
I have had the thought. I know Suzanne contemplates changing.
Yeah.
I'm an old cat. Changing gear this time of my life, it's really difficult to contemplate. I don't know what I was going on, what I would do. I really don't. Drive a cab. And also because in this profession, in this industry, I've had so many different, I'm wearing so many different caps. So should I find another cap within this industry, or should I go completely somewhere else?
Yeah.
I don't know where. I don't think I'm qualified for anything. There have been a couple of times in my life when I have done something else. I was teaching. I had somebody who went on maternity leave, and I took her place for a year in an ordinary school.
Mm-hmm.
I've never done that before.
How did they allow that to happen?
It was back in the early 2000s, and teachers were needed desperately. So you speak English, you can teach English, yes. And do you play an instrument? No. But you know of music? Yes. Well, you can teach music. That's that was how it was. And it was the toughest year of my life until I had kids.
And then you realized it was a doddle.
Yes, exactly. So I've done some bits and bobs, and usually I've been sort of discontent, basically, because
I mean, there isn't an actor in the world who hasn't had to do other stuff as well. Whether, you know, there isn't, is there? Not even the most famous, you know. So do you think there will be, do you think the industry there in Denmark will be scarred from this?
There was a time when I thought that it would change things forever if they get this disease under control and doesn't branch out into new viruses. Then eventually it will go back to normal because people need it. They want to. I mean, that's what we have experienced over here.
What has made you the saddest about the situation?
That's a good question. What has made me the saddest? Well, I think that was earlier in the period, maybe all the way back to the lockdown, when I had the thought that this could go on forever. What if this really does mean that we are never going to sit in a cinema together again, or in a theater? People were, myself included, watching Netflix. Is this how we're going to be cultural in the future? And young people not being able to meet up and hang out, but doing it over Zoom. That sort of, I think that has made me the saddest.
So, finally, my final question is, what would you like your legacy to be?
I think I would like to have done something where I was solely responsible. I don't know, maybe write a book, maybe direct a film. I do like to sit at my computer and write, so maybe there's a book.
What would your book be about, Sune?
I don't know. That's the thing. So maybe story of a father in lockdown, tormented by his kids.
I think there may be a few books like that coming out.
Yes.
Thank you so much for talking to me today, Sune. It's been an absolute honor and lovely to see you again. And I do hope for all of us that things get resolved as soon as possible, yes. And that we can all start doing what we were meant to do again. So thank you.
Thank you. It's been great.